was young, and the air was sweet, and the mountains kissed the sky in the far beyond.
Good morning, third grade. We are continuing to talk all about Native American religion and culture. And today we are actually going to talk about Southeast. So that is going to be pretty close to our side of the United States, but in the South, so below us. So again, we're going to learn all about it today. So here's our read aloud. Long before the arrival of Europeans, the southeastern part of America was also populated by a large number of native tribes. Just as before, the journey of these people to the region of America had occurred over hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Extended family groups moved gradually from northern regions to southern. They were probably enticed by the warm sunshine that touched their skin, the fruits and the berries they could gather, and the herds that they hunted. And so, settlements were gradually going from a nomadic existence to a structured form of settlement based around small farming communities. Some of these southeastern native tribes included the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and the Creek. Some of the Creek, together with other tribes, became merged many years later with a Native American group called Seminole, and migrated farther south into present-day Florida. These tribal groups lived in densely forested Appalachian mountains and the flat and verdant coastal plains, and among the green rolling hills. The area referred to as the Southeast stretches from the lower Mississippi River to the Atlantic Ocean, and from Tennessee to the coastal areas near the Gulf of Mexico. It is an area that even to this day boasts warm, pleasant climate and rich, fertile soil. Just like the Hopi and Zuni of the Southwest and the Iroquois of the Northeast, many of the southeastern tribes had ancestral ties to ancient cultures. For example, the people of the Natchez tribe were the direct descendants of the native people who created the extraordinary Mississippian culture. And just as before, once these large extended family groups formed tribes and developed ways to grow and harvest crops, they began to settle in specific areas. It is true to say that farming changed human history forever. Once people began to farm, they were compelled to stay close to the fields in which their crops grew. Therefore, as the crops in the field grew, so too did the cultural identity of large numbers of tribal groups. The landscape and climate contributed greatly to each tribe's identity. For the southwestern Indians, corn, beans, and squash, including pumpkin, were the most important crops. These crops were essential to the survival of southeastern Indians. Sunflowers were grown for seeds and oil, and tobacco was harvested too. All tribes fished and hunted, especially during winter months. They used bow and arrows to hunt animals such as deer, rabbits, raccoons, and turkeys. The children of these tribes gathered nuts, berries, and sap. Again, several kinds of corn were grown and cooked in a variety of ways. Corn could also be dried and used during the months when food was less plentiful. When Europeans first came to North America, the Southeast was the most densely populated region. The southeastern Native American tribes benefited from rich soil, reliable rainfall, and warm sunshine for most of the year. And so, unlike the colder regions in America, in the Southeast, it was possible to grow 2 main crops a year. With a more reliable food supply, the native population grew quite considerably. The first crop of the year was usually planted in late spring and harvested in the middle of the summer. The second crop was planted midway through the summer. At the end of each growing season, many tribes burned off any unused part of the plant. This process enriched the soil for the next crop. The men of the tribe were responsible for turning the soil or plowing, and the women and children tended the crop. Even though the southeastern tribes farmed, it was still important for them to obtain food by hunting, fishing, and gathering. In the wintertime, when frost or snow coated the landscape and nothing could grow in the sleeping earth, hunting parties would leave home and go in search of much-needed food. Southeastern tribes built a combination of small tribal villages near areas that were good for farming and were also close to a water source, such as a river or a lake. And they built larger, town-like settlements with fences in similar locations. The smaller villages were generally close to the larger towns. Several hundred people could live in a tribal town. Each tribe protected its village and towns as well as its farmland. In the center of the village was a large common area for holding meetings and ceremonies. Children could play in this area too. Children played games and they had toys. Several villages formed chiefdoms. There was a tribal chief who, together with important warriors and religious men, governed the tribe from a central town. The chiefs of these governing bodies held the greatest power of all the leaders and were destined to serve as chiefs from the moment they were born. The chief's house and the gathering place, called the Great House, were also in the center of the village. Like the common area, the Great House was used for special occasions. As did all people in North America, the southeastern tribes used natural resources to build their homes. In this case, generally using wood, cane, mud, and straw to build family homes. The style of house did vary, but most southeastern native people built circular homes in the wintertime. And again, you can see that over here. These are more circular than they are square homes. Winter homes had cone-shaped roofs. You can see that right there, through which smoke from an internal fire could escape. Summertime houses varied considerably. Some were round, some grass houses had a large thatch roof supported by wooden pole. Some summer houses had walls, others did not. Most southeastern tribes wore similar clothing. Deerskin were scraped and pounded until it became soft to the touch. It was sewn together to make a dress. Shirts, leggings, robes, and shoes. One of the largest tribes in the Southeast was the Cherokee. They lived in Georgia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Like most tribes, they lived in villages on the edge of a river. Their villages were set up with careful planning, and their homes were clearly constructed. Cherokee homes were built by weaving river cane, wood, and vines together to make a framework. Their framework was coated with mud-like plaster. The roof was either thatched or covered in bark. These homes were permanent homes and took quite some time to construct. The Cherokee are thought to be distant relatives of the Iroquois because of the similar language that they spoke. They would later become part of the Seminole Nation. In Cherokee society, the men were in charge of hunting, going to war, and making tribal decisions that were political. Cherokee women were responsible for making decisions about the family, property, and farming. In late summer, the Cherokee celebrated the end of the growing season with a kind of harvest festival called the Green Corn Festival. As well as feasting on corn, it was time to start a fresh, new start. The new clothes were worn, grievances were settled, and people sang and danced. Like all Native people, the Cherokee believed in nature spirits. They looked up at the night sky and believed that there was a connection between earth and the heavens. For them, the sun was the most important force of all, and they gave thanks to it and its life-giving energy. The Cherokee often went on hunting trips, and they often were fishing and trading. They traveled along long, winding rivers in canoes. When journeying across land, they used dogs as pack animals. The Cherokee made beautiful pots, beadwork, bags, and tactile art. These items were often traded with other tribes for copper, shells, stones, tools, pots, and ochre to make yellow-brown paints. From midsummer through late fall, on the outskirts of most Cherokee villages, a ball game called Enetsa was played. The name of the game is a big clue to how important the ball game actually was. In fact, it is so important that it can hardly be compared to the games as we think of them today. The word Enetsa in Cherokee language means little brother of war. The men who participated in Enetsa would become prepared for fighting. Enetsa was played on a flat area of land that could be at least 3 acres in size. It's really big. That's humongous. Goalposts were made of saplings that were placed on either end of the playing area. The ball used to play this game was made of deer hide, and it was about the size of a golf ball. It was a small thing. Each player had two short sticks made of hickory, with which to hit the ball. There could be hundreds of players playing at one time. The first team to score 12 points won the game. So remember, think about this, guys. That's a lot of people to be playing at one time. Hundreds of players on 3-acre fields. That's bigger than a football stadium. This is a big thing. This isn't just a little game that you can go and watch. This was a really big deal, and they took it very seriously. Special rituals occurred when the guidance of shamans the evening before the game was played, and these rituals were as important as the game itself. Men and women would dance and chant around the fire all night long. One by one, the men would go to the water with the shamans where they would receive special medicine to take them more confident and skilled. So they want to take this medicine so they feel really confident. The rituals were believed to bring success to players, and they were also a way of encouraging players to be brave. For this game had very few rules and was very violent. As a result, there were many injuries. So again, with the name being the little brother of war, they considered this their practice for training for war. So they weren't going to hold back any stops. And that means that people got really hurt. And you can kind of see it almost looks like this picture. This guy's got a little bit of some scrapes on him from probably playing this game. Like many other Native American tribes, people of the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminoles still inhabit areas of the southeastern region of America. Some of these Native Americans identify with modern-day culture, whereas others chose to live as their ancestors lived before and honor traditions from long ago. So, I want you guys to have a great night, and I want you guys to be very safe and to make sure you guys are going and taking your Google quizzes at the end of these. Have a nice night, guys.
Oh, no, 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 oh, no, no, no.